Hi, everyone.
Good
Welcome.
morning. Good morning, everyone. This is Kim Johnson, Director with the California Department of Social Services. We are so glad to have you here this morning. We do have a few more people registered that are coming in live, so we're just going to give it 1 or 2 more minutes here and we will get going. Thank you. Okay, good morning. This is Kim Johnson, Director with the California Department of Social Services, and welcome to our second stakeholder meeting related to the transfer of child care and development programs from the Department of Education to the Department of Social Services. We are so thrilled that nearly 500 attendees have joined this morning and just appreciate your continued interest and commitment to the work of children and families across California. I want to just start off in recognition of just tremendous challenge that we are experiencing across the state. So just thoughts out with each of you who have maybe been impacted by the wildfires, certainly by the pandemic and public health emergency. Thoughts are all with you as we work together in communities to be resilient and come together through this year. So today you are going to hear from the team on the progress that has been made over this first quarter, our opportunities for additional engagement in the upcoming quarter, and we will also be giving you all opportunities to ask us questions today. Feel free to type those into the chat. We will field as many as we can, and I really, again, appreciate your participation today. I also just want to thank the Department of Social Services team who has put together not only today's presentation, but who has been working fast and furiously over the last several months to support a seamless transition. I also want to thank the Department of Education who, in addition to working to be responsive and adaptive to all the policies and resources that have been deployed by both the administration and the legislature, but have also been taking the time to onboard the Department of Social Services teams to again ensure that transition. So thanks a lot. Work is happening. You'll hear more about that in detail. And again, just welcome and glad you're here with us. With that, I will turn it over to our Chief Deputy Director, Jen Troya, to kick us off. Jen.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here with us. As Kim said, we are deeply grateful for your engagement and participation in this transfer process. Quick level setting reminders by way of overview. We are in the process of a transition year, and effective July 1, 2021, a number of early care and learning programs will transition from the Department of Education to the Department of Social Services, and our teams will be integrated here under the Department of Social Services roof. We've had one of these quarterly calls already, and I believe the archive for that is on our website. It went over a lot more detail about which programs are transferring and which remain at the Department of Education, and quite a bit about our vision for the short and long term of a stable and smooth transition, as well as a whole child, whole family, equitable, accessible, affordable child care and development system that supports children and families in their learning and their child care needs. So we encourage you to look for that recording if you would like additional details from that first session. So for today, we'd like to talk a little bit about the progress that we've been making and the things that we've been focused on in the first quarter of the transition, and to make sure that we update you on some upcoming activities that will be happening and that you can engage in as well. We will also have time, a lot of time hopefully, for your questions and comments. So our first quarter progress report. The first thing we want to emphasize is the collaboration that Director Johnson already highlighted between CDSS and CDE. We have a number of internal work groups that are working together on a very regular basis to ensure a smooth transition. So the topics of those work groups, some of the bigger picture highlights are listed here on the slide. Contracts, human resources and labor relations, facilities and equipment, data systems and infrastructure, program and policy, and childcare licensing and quality coordination. In addition to these internal collaborations, we are spending quite a bit of time engaging with stakeholders and benefiting from the wisdom of those who rely upon our system, who carry out the system, and who are a part of the field and the full support of what brings the system together. We are very committed to ensuring that the community is supported to participate throughout this transition process and into the future of the program. So we want to facilitate full engagement as much as possible. So we are encouraging engagement through various venues, and we will talk a little bit more about some of them coming up. We also really want to emphasize family voices and parent focus groups and other forms of engagement for the children and families who benefit directly from the program. And we want to work with all of you to make sure that we are identifying and addressing barriers to access and equitable outcomes. Another forum for input is the Early Childhood Policy Council, or the ECPC. The ECPC also has work groups that we hope will help to inform the transfer related to issues such as those listed here on the slide. They include racial and economic equity, positive family and child outcomes and access, positive outcomes for providers and contractors, alignment of the licensing and quality continuums, and whole child and whole family approaches to service access. We are also working with many of you in topical listening sessions. We have held one of these already, and we have several more that are planned in the near future. And in a moment, we will also ask you about what others you think might be helpful. This is really an opportunity for us to listen and to hear your thoughts, concerns, and ideas. So the initial plans include sessions focused on contracting, which we already held that listening session in early October. Rural communities and the issues facing them, that will be on November 12th. Tribal communities and partnerships, equity, and a whole child, whole family approach to service delivery. With that, I am going to turn the presentation over to Christina Mesa, who is our branch chief over CalWorks, and she is also going to conduct a poll to get some input from all of you and then carry us through some additional information about ways to engage.
Thank you so much, Jen, and thank you all for joining us. It's a pleasure to be here. Really excited to launch this poll with you all. Another opportunity for us to gather some feedback from everyone who's joined us this morning, and want to remind folks there's other opportunities for feedback as they relate to the listening sessions that we will be hosting. So as Jen mentioned, right, we've already hosted our contracting listening session. Upcoming, we have our rural, tribal, equity, and whole family listening sessions, but really want to hear from you all on what topics you would like to be covered in upcoming sessions. And so we've heard a little bit in some of our stakeholder engagement that we've been able to host thus far and have been able to capture some topics and some trends in the feedback that we've been receiving through our feedback form. So what you will see in just a minute is a poll capturing some of those listening session topics that are that we've been able to get from these various different venues. So we'll go ahead and launch that now. Perfect. So on your screen, you should be able to see a few options. Just to review them for you, one of the options that you will see is a policy and regulation streamlining listening session. Another option you will see is issue and challenges for dual language learners. Another option you will see is utilization of local, state, and federal funding. A fourth option is utilization of data and reporting. And then we also included another option and encourage you all to please use the chat function in GoToWebinar to list any additional topics that you would like to see covered that you may not see either as a polling option or upcoming in the next couple of months. So we'll give everybody just a minute to go ahead and complete those polls. Want to remind folks that this is a multiple selection option, so if you see more than one topic that you would like to cover, feel free to choose multiple options. Wonderful. I'm seeing a lot of engagement in the chat as well, so thank you for that. Leave it up for just a little bit longer. We see we're at about 65% voted. Okay, we'll go ahead and close up the poll. So it looks like, and we can share the poll results out with everyone, so just give us a second. We'll go ahead and share that with you all. Wonderful. So on your screen, you should all see the results, and you'll see some of the trends, right? So it looks like most popular is the policy and regulation streamlining, followed directly by utilization of local, state, and federal funding. And then right after that one, we see utilization of data and reporting. And then coming in fourth, issues and challenges of dual language learners. And understanding, right, that these are all topics and items that we've received in various forums. So we'll continue to move these pieces forward in our discussions during these listening sessions. But really appreciate all of your feedback and looking forward to parsing through the options that folks have submitted in the chat function. And please continue to submit those recommendations as well as we move through the presentation. So with that, we'll go ahead and close the poll. Wonderful, thank you so much. Okay, so moving on to upcoming activities. So quite a few events coming up in the next quarter. November, we will likely see the ECPC presentation specifically about the quarterly report that Jen had mentioned previously. We will also be hosting some topical listening sessions in November. As Jen had mentioned, we've already have on the calendar our rural listening session and really excited to host that for all of you. Coming in December, we'll continue with the topically based listening sessions. So we'll have others scheduled in December, but we'll also launch our parent engagement sessions that Jen had referenced earlier as well. And we will plan to release, as a state, right, the master plan. And so looking forward to identifying ways of integrating a master plan into our transition process and transfer process. And then in January, we'll see our second quarterly report posted to our website and out for the community to review. We'll continue with our listening sessions in the new year. We will also have the transition plan draft posted on our website and up for public comment for a period of 30 days. And then we will also host our third quarterly stakeholder call. So really excited to welcome all of you back towards the end of January, and we'll have that date, save the date in an upcoming slide. And as we mentioned previously, there's many opportunities to continue with the stakeholder engagement process and invite you all to continue to connect with us. We have an email inbox that you all can submit your questions, comments, feedback to directly, or suggestions. That email address is on your screen, and it is cctransition@dss.ca.gov. We also have posted and is now live a transfer-focused webpage, and I'll read out the web address to you: https://cdss.ca.gov/CDSS-programs/CDSS-CALWORKS/CalWorks-child-care/transition. A long web address, so I invite you all to continue the engagement process moving forward on that website. You will be able to see our live stakeholder comment form, and we have that link below as well as a PDF version of the form, so that way folks can print it out, fill it out manually, and submit it via our email inbox. A survey and stakeholder comment form that I just mentioned, the website for that is https://www.surveymonkey.com/r/KXNJ2LN. So with that, we are going to pause here for a minute to allow folks who are on the line and engaging in the chat function to please submit questions, comments, additional feedback, and we will go ahead and answer some of those in just a minute, but want to give you all an opportunity to submit those questions, and looking forward to continuing the conversation in just a moment. So thank you for submitting questions. We see that quite a few folks are still submitting, so I encourage you all to continue to do so. And we will go ahead and start responding to a couple. And I also wanted to remind folks, in addition to the questions that you can submit via the chat box, we will also be able to take some live questions. So there is a raise hand feature as part of GoToWebinar. So if you see in your function box, you should be able to see a little hand. And if you click on that hand, we'll be able to identify you, and we can mute you and unmute you on our end and ask that you go ahead and ask your question live. So please feel free to raise your hand if you'd like to, and we can go ahead and call on you individually. Okay, as we continue to move through the questions coming into the question box, we're going to go ahead and take a couple of live questions. So, I see Stephen Irwin. Stephen, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. Okay, Stephen, you should be unmuted, but it looks like you're muted on your line, but your line is open if you'd like to go ahead and ask your question. Okay. All right, Stephen, it looks like you're muted on your end, so we will come. Oh, there we go. Hey, Stephen.
Yeah, I'm just concerned about quality across all of our programs through this transition. We've been working really hard to professionalize early childhood and make some major steps. And I just want to make sure that we're going to continue that whole perspective that early childhood education and care is probably the most important thing that we can do in California. It needs to be done with quality. It needs to be done with more money. So just making sure that that continues to happen, or at least the conversation continues to happen.
Thank you, Stephen. Absolutely agree. Couldn't agree more. And just want to kind of reiterate both our willingness at the Department of Social Services to continue and build on all of the great work that's been happening in that space, that we are absolutely continuing the collaboration and connection with the Department of Education, and of course through the Early Childhood Policy Council, through the master plan, and additional conversations related to how California moves forward in that conversation is certainly on the radar and part of our plan of continuing to work on the space. So really very much appreciate the question, and absolutely looking to build on the great work that's been done in this space.
Thanks so much, Kim. Thanks so much, Stephen. We are going to go ahead and unmute Susanna Lull. So Susanna, we're going to go ahead and unmute your line. All right, Susanna, we're getting that you're self-muted as well. If you can unmute yourself. Okay, Susanna, we'll come back to you. It looks like you're still muted. Next, we have Elisa Magadoff. Hopefully I said your name correctly. Elisa, you're unmuted if you'd like to ask your question.
I didn't know that my hand was raised. I don't see any, my screen is completely frozen, so I don't know what's going on.
Apologies, Elisa. Okay, did you have a question you wanted to ask some of our panelists?
Well, my concerns are the same as Steve's. I mean, Steve Irwin's, we've been working really hard at making this a viable profession, and it seems like the regulatory agency is going to take over the educational aspect, and that's very concerning to me. So I guess that's not a question, it's a statement. But can you assure us that you'll have early childhood educators and people who are professional in this field, as the go-to people for whom you would ask the questions on whether or not it's developmentally appropriate, as opposed to just being, is it under regulations?
Thank you for the question. I think it's important to clarify that while we do house the community care licensing staff who have the licensing role for child care programs and play a very important role in ensuring health and safety, we also have programmatic staff and policy staff, as well as fiscal staff, and a number of other folks who round out our team. And in response to one of the questions that was also submitted, I think that relates to your question as well, about whether or not CDE staff will be moving over to CDSS. Yes, the answer is yes. So we are still in the process of figuring out exactly which positions are funded in which ways, and we'll be moving with the funds that transfer over. But that's in large part, a lot of the early care and learning staff from CDE will be moving over to the Department of Social Services as well and rounding out our team. So we are absolutely committed to quality of care and to child development principles and the foundational benefits of early care and learning for children in school readiness and in their connection to school as they age, and to the professionalization of the field. So these are principles that we also hold dear, and we will have a diverse team of folks with various backgrounds and responsibilities who continue to work on the program.
And it looks like there's an additional question related to the building on the intersections between licensing and the quality continuum. So just want to provide, just building on what Jen just mentioned, additional information in that space. So again, as Jen outlined, licensing provides that basic health and safety. It's the Title 22 regulations, right, in that space. And certainly as different efforts, whether they be through the Quality Counts Initiative, et cetera, we are just wanting to ensure that we're always thinking about that health and safety foundation as the base, that we're looking at both opportunities to enter the workforce in the field, and also then to continue the recognition of the various educational requirements, the various environmental requirements, the interactions, et cetera. So certainly, again, there's a intent to build on what has been established in this space, and of course, absolutely think about the child development permits. And again, there's been a number of conversations that have happened over the course of the last several years related to kind of requirements and standards, if you will, for the various components of the field and the workforce that are all, again, part of where we're starting from and moving forward. And again, this is a space in place where we expect the master plan and early childhood policy council to continue to weigh in as well. So yes, the relationships between the CTC, the commission, the higher educational institutions, all of those components will continue, and will continue the conversation in recognition of the early childhood profession and sector being just a critical component of supporting children's development along the way. And of course, I just would also just mention, right, we also have now, in terms of family child care, bargaining in that space, and that has kicked off. So that will certainly be a part of the conversations moving forward.
Thank you, Kim. And similarly, we've received a number of questions related to the nutrition programs, and in particular to the child and adult care food program moving over to CDSS. And one of the questions is about whether or not other USDA programs, presumably that interact with schools, are moving over to the California Department of Social Services. And we just want to clarify that at this point, the CACFP is the nutrition program that is moving from CDE to CDSS. CDSS does also operate a number of USDA funded programs, and will continue to do so. But the other USDA funded programs that are currently housed at the Department of Education
are not included in the move to CDSS. Wonderful. Okay, we're going to take another live question. So we have Sharon Kimura. Apologies, Sharon. Hopefully I said your last name correctly. You are unmuted if you'd like to ask your question, Sharon. Sharon Kimura? Okay. Not hearing Sharon. So we are going to go to Paula James. So Paula James, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. Your line should be unmuted, Paula, but it looks like you're muted on your end. If you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi,
Paula.
excuse me, I'm gonna have to turn one of my devices off. I'm hoping you can, I'm sorry, but my volume only works on one device.
We can hear you, Paula. There is a little bit of an echo, but we can hear you.
Okay, I apologize for the echo. And my question is related to the Childhood Adult Care Food Program, and specifically, we have seen a number of waivers and implementation changes this year, and we're unclear exactly how that will be moving forward. And in addition to that, there are a number of regulatory changes that are going to be implemented. My suggestion is that because CACFP is such a paperwork intensive and heavily regulated program, that we look at a way to slow down the transition.
Thank you for your question and comments. We are working closely with the staff at CDE to understand the complexities of the program, and please do be assured that our staff who work on the other USDA-funded programs here at CDSS are very familiar with working with those federal partners and also the complexities of many of those programs as well. We similarly have many waivers in those programs that are currently operating through the pandemic. So we will continue to partner very closely with them to make sure that the transition is smooth, and we hear your desire for additional time as well, and we'll take that comment into consideration.
Okay, we will take one more live question. So we have Laura M. Laura, I'm going to go ahead and unmute yourself, or unmute your line. There you go, Laura. You should be unmuted.
Hi, this is Laura Magnusdottir at 4C Sonoma. I am wondering about the contracts for next year, because a lot of work has already been done by the contractors to prepare for next year, and will that have to be redone under a new department, or will all of that work for the contracts beginning July 1, 2021, will all that work just kind of transition over? Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you for your comments. We have had a lot of conversation about contracts, and our first listening session, which I think we already mentioned, was focused on contracts, and we heard quite a bit of input from the field about what is working well and about what concerns there are also, in particular with respect to payments in the transition during the summer after the budget is enacted. So we are working very closely with CDE to ensure that we have a smooth transition of those aspects and that we build on what is working well and try to help problem solve for where there are challenges. I think Jigna is going to also talk a little bit more about what we heard in those listening sessions, if it's helpful for folks to kind of get a brief summary of some of that input.
Yes, so again, the listening session for contracting was on October 2nd, and I'm just going to walk through some of the highlights that we heard from our community. We had almost 1,000 participants representing childcare providers, representing alternative payment programs, representing direct service contractors, and a lot of other stakeholders. So some of the things that we heard was the importance of respecting the relationship between a provider and a parent, and ensuring an open door policy, and ensuring that providers understand compliance requirements. We've also heard a lot of feedback on the culture and the spirit of partnership, and looking at childcare less in a compliance focus and more with an outcomes focus. We also heard a lot of comments and feedback about payment systems, specifically around ensuring that alternative payment programs receive their proportion checks in a timely manner in order to make sure that childcare providers do get paid. We've also heard about the importance of flexibility in contract types, specifically for direct contract programs, where soon these programs will be working on working with multiple funding streams, possibly working with CDE for state preschool programs, working with CDSS on some other funding streams, and then also working possibly with Head Start at a federal level. Another comment that we heard at that contracting session was about building on lessons learned from COVID-19, specifically things such as transferring clients online, remote re-enrollment, and building upon innovation such as electronic signatures that have happened during COVID-19, and that would work in the future once we move past this pandemic. Also, we heard feedback on efficiencies to make sure that the subsidy administration process is as smooth as possible, and having subsidies follow children. So these are all some of the things that we heard in the contracts listening session. Again, if you would like to provide additional feedback on the contracting process, you can also go to the CDSS transition website and submit the feedback form and give us feedback that way. You can also email us at our email address. It's cctransition@dss.ca.gov, and you can give us feedback there as well. We're collecting feedback from that email address as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Jigna. And I also just wanted to add to that, this is Christina Messigan with CalWorks, to thank those on the line who did participate in the contract listening session. We have quite a bit that Jigna had highlighted that we're excited to parse through and help inform the transition plan, which, as a reminder, will be posted live on our website in January, and encourage and really hope that folks on the line continue to provide feedback directly to that transition plan draft that will be posted. And folks will have a 30-day period to review and provide comments. Also wanted to remind folks that in our quarterly reports, you'll see a lot of these pieces that we're moving forward over the next few months spoken to directly in those reports. So encourage folks to dig into those, and if you have questions or feedback or concerns specifically relating to those quarterly reports, would encourage you to submit feedback on our feedback form that we had mentioned earlier is live on our website, and then also our email address that Jigna had just referenced as well. Thank you.
And we see a number of questions in the chat and comments related to some policies, both related to state preschool and it remaining at the Department of Education, about the contracts that are coming over to the Department of Social Services, et cetera. About now, I think there's a question here around stage 1 and changes in 2 and 3. Just want to say again, we will log these questions. These are not places, and I just want to again assure all of you who have joined us today, where it relates to policy change. A lot of these are policy change proposals that are in the chat, that we will engage in conversation about policy change proposals. We recognize that in terms of timing, as has been mentioned, again, we are looking to make this transfer effective July 1, 2021. As we look at additional policy changes, we will absolutely engage with the field in those conversations. Again, whether it's utilizing the Early Childhood Policy Council as a venue, creating separate conversations, et cetera. And I want to, for those who have not worked with the Department of Social Services, I just want to assure you that we are a department that is very, very clearly focused on community engagement. As you know, in many cases, as you've likely experienced, Department of Education has had a number and series of work groups related to policy change, CCDF planning, et cetera. And so again, the Department of Social Services will be providing those forums for conversation and engagement and input on some of these policy change questions in here. So do not expect in an unveiling of a number of really, really radical changes. Of course, there will be a budget process, as there is every year. The governor will put his budget proposal forward in January. We will have the engagement with the legislature as we do every year. We will, again, as an administration, put out a budget revision proposal in May, and of course, look to create a final budget. So as any policy change would be proposed, those would show up there again, and we are certainly committed to dialogue in that space. But just again, want to say there's not other policy change components immediately that we are transferring that will all happen through those processes that it would in any other year. And again, just want to restate our commitment across the department to engage with stakeholders prior to those policy changes being implemented. So again, the department is very, very committed in this space and will certainly have those conversations on some of these questions. So there's a whole group of questions that kind of, I think, fall into that bucket. And again, want to just specifically make sure that we are absolutely cataloging these, and where you have recommendations, where you have feedback for us, please do share that, and we will certainly be in touch on additional opportunities to talk about those issues.
Thank you so much, Kim. And we have a few more live question requests that we're going to take a couple of those. I'm going to turn first to Commissioner Bruce Boyden. Commissioner, I'm going to go ahead and unmute your line. Okay, your line is unmuted, but it looks like you're muted on your end. There we go.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I don't have a question now. It was answered previously. I'm just interested in knowing more about the transition between the Department of Social Services versus the not the state of California, the Education Department, and how will it affect really and truly the services offered to children and families?
This is Kim. I'm happy to restate and reiterate that this transfer we are committed to building on the strengths of the system, the work that the Department of Education has done. We also want to maximize and leverage our ability within the Health and Human Services Agency and this department on how families, especially families who may have low income, may be experiencing poverty, may be for the first time due to job loss and other circumstances of this year, be engaged with our other safety net programs. So again, we are the department that administers CalFresh for food assistance, housing and homelessness supports, the CalWorks program, which is cash assistance and inclusive of CalWorks Stage 1 childcare, home visiting programs. We also, of course, within our agency are the Department of Developmental Services supporting early intervention, Department of Healthcare Services supporting access to healthcare and Medi-Cal. So we certainly want to maximize and leverage those programs. And that again, when you hear the team and all of us saying whole family, that's really an acknowledgement, especially for those households most impacted by poverty, how we are thinking about opportunities for those families to get connected to and get the supports they need to continue on that comprehensive array of resources and services they have to them. So that's again what we are looking to leverage and build upon with the transfer. And certainly in terms of the other work and experiences, especially from, I would say, from both the family child care providers, for the center-based programs, for the Title V programs, our intent is absolutely to build on the work that's been done and continue to move forward in the work. So again, there's no kind of concrete change that we can specify at this point. What a lot of the work that you're hearing the team speak to is in support of making that transition and transfer seamless so that there's not disruption to services on the ground. Again, and then we will be engaging with you and want to hear from you on some of the ways in which you believe the programs, the systems, the policies can be strengthened going forward.
Sounds great.
I also wanted to address a couple of questions we're seeing in the chat related to data. There's a comment made related to data and reporting. Again, want to say that this again is a space we know we have heard, we'd love to continue to build on, and that there is, as the commenter points out, more than just the numbers. We fully support and agree with that comment. Again, we have the opportunity building on places where, for example, the Health and Human Services Agency has master data sharing agreements across departments for the purpose of improving service delivery, duration, avoiding churn in these programs for those who are participating, as an example, and a lot of conversation within this administration. There's something called the Cradle to Career data effort, and we'll get that to you in the chat so you can, if you're interested, you can see more where we are thinking about data systems across the board, and again, partnerships with the education system moving forward. So we agree with you. We need to be able to clearly tell the story of the outcomes, and that's not only for the children experiencing the richness of these programs, but also for the workforce, for the programs, et cetera. And the Department of Social Services, we invite you not only on the transfer website, but on our regular website. We have a number of both data dashboards that provide some of those numbers, but also speak to how quickly individuals are able to access services, the accuracy of their enrollment and experience and process, and have a number of efforts to truly evaluate how our programs are doing. So we fully agree and appreciate that. We also want to always be engaging with the families and do satisfaction surveys, those kinds of things. That's something that we're currently enrolling in our CalWorks program as well. So I just want to lift up that, yes, data is very important to us. We have created a chief data strategist position within the Department of Social Services last year. It absolutely is a space where we want to prioritize and grow our ability to tell the full story.
Thank you, Kim. And we have a few more other live questions that we'll go ahead and take. I'm going to go ahead and start with Sabrina Drake. Sabrina, I'm going to unmute your line. Okay, you are unmuted, Sabrina.
Hi, this is Sabrina Drake. Thanks for taking my question. And more of a comment, less of a question, and that is that I understand the wraparound services that will be provided through your department. I think the concern may be for those of us who manage both a CSPP contract and a CTR contract, that there's now two separate reporting agencies, and that we will lose our forward momentum of providing, of really showing how early care for 0 to 3 is educational, and we don't want to lose that momentum in the field.
Thank you, Sabrina. And just want to lift up, there's a number of existing partnerships that the Department of Social Services and the Department of Education have today, where we jointly look at our data together to be able to tell that full story. We do it in the foster youth space. We do it in a number of other spaces as well. So absolutely appreciate again that one, we do not want to increase the burden on those of you who hold both contracts in terms of a significant difference, if any, in what you must report. We also certainly want to be able to tell that story of early childhood and the experience of our young children together. So we'll be looking for those opportunities to partner with the Department of Education to be able to tell that full story.
I just want to add, this is Jen, and I just want to add to what Kim said also in recognizing that the brain development research in recent years, and really what we have all learned about the benefits of early care and learning and other connections in the brain that come from relationships and that come from evidence-based strategies for intervention are critical to our programs that we operate at the Department of Social Services, apart from child care as well. So within the foster care space, within CalWorks, within our home visiting programs, we are very cognizant of that research and really try to base our policies on evidence-based interventions. And we really look forward to continuing to build on all of that as we integrate our teams in this space as well.
Thank you. We're going to go ahead and take one more live question. It looks like we have one from Kathy Lathrop. Kathy, I'm going to go ahead and unmute your line.
Good morning. Thank you for these opportunities. My questions are and comments are very much along the lines of what others have been representing, but maybe in a more specific framework. Will the transition with the various C-Center, CMIG, and other contracts moving over to CCL align with and mirror specifically the QRIS efforts? Because not only does that ensure the quality and some of the educational components, but it also comes with funding sources, which particularly in infant toddler care, are critical for a lot of us to maintain the services. Also, the ECHRs and the DRDP and some of the other specific assessment and environmental rating, environment assessments and so forth. The other piece around that I wanted to call out is that will those be aligned or mirrored? Specifically, most of us that run multiple contracts, we've invested decades of training with our staff on these tools, and they're very integrated on the tools and very skillful with the tools at this point. So that's important, and we've been able to do that often by funds from other sources, First Five, sometimes the Department of Ed, other types of funding, or CPIN, or other types of funding that have allowed for that professional development. I would be really sorry to see that erode, and any shifts in tools or views on services for children or families really need to have those wraparounds of the systemic professional development and organizational development that lets you implement. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is, most of us in early care and ed, we run our programs on a shoestring for capacity because there isn't a lot of extra after we pay staff and facilities and whatnot for administration. So the capacity for all of us to run multiple contracts from multiple agencies increases stressors on the system that, and especially coming out of COVID, right? But in any time, just to be aware of that. And lastly, I just wanted to make a little comment that's been needling me as this whole process has been in place. And I've watched what language has been coming out about it. Those of us that serve preschool children, of course, take those children as the whole child and the whole family. And CDE, as you know, has multiple things embedded, needs assessments, the ability to hire mental health consultants and so forth that address that whole family approach. I do hear in this call some additional opportunities in terms of linking systems that I think will be great. A lot of us on our own have already linked those systems, CalFresh and so forth, and there's probably others that to be accessed, and probably depending on the particular organization, that may or may not be true. But anyways, just please, as often as you can, directly mirror what we did with the Department of Ed. It's as important, those tools are as important for infant toddler care and school age care as they are for preschool care. And of course, a lot of us serve preschoolers also on C-Center contracts if we have family child networks. So thank you. And the sooner you can get us some specifics, the sooner our anxiety level will go down.
Understood, and just want to so appreciate those comments to us across the board. I do really want to ensure that you all listening with us and here with us this morning understand that we recognize the strengths of the existing system and all of the work that has been put in that has been absolutely tremendous across California. I do want to also just provide one note of clarification. I know that many of you who haven't really had an additional relationship with the Department of Social Services above and beyond community care licensing, I just want to clarify, this move is not shifting the programs from the Department of Education to community care licensing. It is shifting them to the Department of Social Services. This will be a division within the department. So this is a division within the department, similar to how it's a division within the Department of Education today. We are absolutely excited about additional opportunities to improve efficiency of processes and learn, right, quality in licensing, as we talked about earlier, between our licensing division and our child care and development division. But certainly I just want to again let you all know it is not moving to licensing, it is moving to the department and will be a standalone division within the department. And also just again, as you've heard, many of the individuals that you work with day to day are transferring and transitioning over to be part of that division. So you will, in some cases, be working with the same staff that you were at the Department of Education. So know that that continuity will by and large be present as well. And then I just want to say that while we are recruiting currently for the deputy director of the division, and certainly want to absolutely through all of what you just said, it's clear that we want someone who understands the system and that role and can provide leadership. I want you to know we also have existing, both at the leadership level and at all levels, existing staff within the Department of Social Services who have been in this field for quite some time. For those of you who might know, Shanice Oram, our program administrator for child care and licensing, is actually formerly from the Child Care Resource and Referral Agency. I myself have worked, I think, in almost all of the quality improvement, administering the quality improvement programs through CCDF throughout my career, whether that be supporting quality improvements in Title V programs, or actually also working as policy director for the network, local planning council, facilities development. So know that the Department of Social Services, again, at all levels, in addition to bringing on and supporting the team that's currently working on these issues, does have a competency. We also have the benefit of being able to have thought partners very close to us, like the Surgeon General, who's done a tremendous work in this space. Our secretary is a pediatrician, fully embracing and understanding the importance of early learning, and someone who I think you will also be hearing from on our future calls. So just want to again assure you that the Department of Social Services has current team members and staff who have been working in the field on programs. Jigna as a former center director. So again, we absolutely hear you and understand that people want to clearly have some experience that feels on the strength of the system that feels fully understood and embraced. So I really, really appreciate the comment.
Two other questions in the question box that I just want to address quickly in addition to Kim's comments. So one is about the title of the new division here at CDSS, and we will affirm for you that it will be called the Child Care and Development Division. And there is another about the recruitment of the deputy director for that division. And the comment was that the person asking the question had not seen it posted on our website. Just want to clarify that it is a governor's appointment and will be confirmed by the Senate. And so the actual place where people do go and submit the application is on the governor's website. Though we are also available for conversations with people about that and in the recruitment process.
Okay, we have one more question, and just want to remind folks, if you do want to participate in the live questions, to utilize the raise hand feature. And what you will see is in your toolbox, you should see a little hand, and when you click that hand, that raises it for you, and we can go ahead and call on you and unmute your line so you can ask your question. So with that, I am going to unmute Sharon Kimura. Okay, Sharon, you should be unmuted. Hey, Sharon, can you hear us? You might be muted on your line if you can unmute your line. Okay, we will come back to Sharon. Okay, we have one more live question. So apologies, there's no name here, but I'm going to unmute you, BC.
Hi, my name is Bernice Miles. I have a question. I heard that the stage 1 was going to be canceled. I know of providers that have been having problems accepting children from that department. I would like to know what's true or not from that information, and what can we do to serve better the children that have those services. I recently had one parent that she had that program, but unfortunately I was never able to communicate with the worker. And this happened like for almost a month, and I ended up having to refund the money deposit that she had put as a deposit. And now she's been transferred to the Department of Education. Like, how is that happening? How can we help those parents to be in better control of communication with the workers and us providers? I think that there's a lack of communication with that department. The Department of Education is a little bit more fast on giving us that information.
Yeah, thank you so much for your question. And I'll start, and again, we're joined by Jigna Shah, who's our Bureau Chief over our Child Care and Intergenerational Services Bureau, where we oversee Stage 1. And just want to reiterate what we heard earlier is that the program as it stands today will stay intact. There are no changes. But want to encourage all of our providers, right, to continue in the engagement process.
You can email us at ccpb@dss.ca.gov. Again, ccpb@dss.ca.gov. And we're happy to help make that connection between you and your county so that you can partner and make sure that as a child care provider, the child care providers get paid and ensure that the families receive the services that they need.
Yes, and I want to apologize, realizing we had some feedback earlier, and so we muted lines, and so only half of the folks on the call heard what we were sharing earlier. But wanted to reiterate that there are at Stage 1, at Stage 2, Stage 3, all of that is still intact, right? There are no changes to the program as it stands. So just wanted to make that clarification, and I know Kim had touched on this earlier. And wanted to encourage folks to continue to participate in our stakeholder engagement process, where we're hearing some of the issues that were just elevated, right? Elevated in these various spaces, and so want to continue to be informed in that in those arenas that we're making available to have these continued conversations on where these challenges and pain points are being experienced by our providers, by our parents and families. And although we had our contract listening sessions, we know, right, that a lot of these issues and challenges that you all are sharing will likely be elevated as part of our equity and whole family, whole child listening sessions as well. So encourage folks to attend those sessions. We'll make sure that those sessions get out to folks who have registered for our stakeholder calls. Again, highly encourage folks to go to our website, fill out our stakeholder form, sign up for our listserv. We also have a comment coming through about a reminder of what the email address is. So we want to remind folks that if you have questions specific to the transition or other areas where folks are hearing some of these messages bubble up within the field and you want clarification, to email us at cctransition@dss.ca.gov. Okay.
Just wanted to say there were a few different questions in the chat box related to licensing. There were some specific licensing questions related to waivers and also some communication locally. So just want to, again, a couple things on that front. The Community Care Licensing Division, Child Care Programs, is providing and has been over the course of October, also having a Q&A and listening sessions specific to licensing and some of the flexibilities that we have implemented this year related to the pandemic. So please, if you haven't been engaged with those and or need connection to your regional licensing office, we can certainly put you in touch. That is the right place to engage on any questions related to waivers and or communication or any challenges you're having locally. So again, we are, through our licensing division and their kind of regular course of business, continuing those forums as well.
Wonderful, thanks, Kim. And then just getting quite a few comments and questions in the chat relating to the email address where we have our web page and where our stakeholder feedback forms can be located. And so we went back to that slide so everybody should be able to see it on their screens now as well. Okay, thank you all. We're getting quite a few questions still in the chat box, so I encourage you all to submit those. Obviously, we won't be able to get to every question that's being submitted. There are some really great questions coming through, feedback, comments, suggestions. So thank you all for providing those. I want to encourage you all to do so. We'll make sure to keep all of this information so that way we can address it and be informed for our future stakeholder calls. So again, just feel free to drop in those responses directly into the chat. And then also want to remind folks once more, right, about the raise hand feature. So if you do want to ask your question live, to go ahead and please raise your hand so we can unmute you. And I see we have Sharon Kimura. Your hand is raised once more, so I'm going to attempt to unmute you, Sharon, so you can ask your question. Okay, Sharon, you should be unmuted now. Okay, Sharon, unfortunately, we still can't hear you, but I want to encourage you, Sharon, if you can submit the question that you had wanted to ask in the chat box so that way we can get to it. Okay, and we're going to go to a question that has popped up into the chat box. There's been a couple of questions related to COVID response and the pandemic this year and into the future. And really just want to step back to some of what Kim said at the beginning of this conversation. First of all, to absolutely appreciate everything that we have all been doing and that you all have been doing on the ground to try to ensure the stability of the early care and learning system and to continue to meet children and families' needs, as well as protect providers and really hold up so much of what is needed in society for all of us to keep going and to endure this extraordinarily difficult time, even before we added the fires and the economic fallout. So clearly want to offer that. We have also been working in very close partnership with CDE, with the legislature, to respond, to provide flexibilities where possible and additional supports like stipends and the ability to continue funding during closures, and appreciate all the comments and interest in continuing and building upon
those supports and resources. We expect those conversations to be ongoing and really welcome your continued input and feedback on what is happening already and what more can happen. We think there will be continued conversations in the current year and immediately, as well as conversations through the budget process and heading into next year. And we really look forward to continuing to partner with all of you to do the very best we can in such an extraordinarily difficult time.
Thank you. And with that, we're going to go ahead and take a live question. So Gloria Cabrera, I'm going to go ahead and unmute your line. Okay, Gloria, you should be unmuted. Hey, Gloria, we're having a little difficulty hearing you. If you can make sure that your line's unmuted on your end as well. Okay. Unfortunately, Gloria, we can't hear you on yeah, okay. If you can please pop your question into the chat box for us as well, Gloria, that would be helpful. We'll make sure we get to it. And just want to thank everyone. We're getting some logistic-related questions to the call, and when folks can get access to the slides that we shared today or the recorded session. And so want to remind folks that the slides will be posted to our website, and we will work with our Civil Rights Unit and Accessibility to make sure that we get this transcribed and available on our website shortly after. But it does take some time for that accessibility process to happen on the back end. But we'll make the slides available in the interim. And then also we're getting some feedback around logistics in terms of platform. And so, you know, when it comes to the platforms used in our listening sessions and in our stakeholder calls, all of that feedback can be captured during or in that stakeholder feedback form as well. So we do have a question related to that and encourage you all to engage in that process as well. So going to give folks a minute to just submit a few more questions, and we'll try and get to those. We have quite a few coming in, so just want to give you all a minute to get those submitted to us.
I just wanted to also note some questions and comments related to both equity and specifically tribal child care. Department of Social Services has been participating in the Tribal Child Care Roundtable for many, many years, and so has that ability and continuity in the conversation, and has actually begun to do some specific reach out to tribes in this space. I think we mentioned it on the very first call, but I'm glad to mention again here. The department established an Office of Equity last year. Within the Office of Equity is including the Office of Tribal Affairs, and certainly we have a commitment to have government-to-government relationships with tribes across California, and a number of additional conversations more broadly for consultation with tribes that we will certainly continue to explore how we can both build on, the work that's happening currently with tribes, but also support the integration of those conversations within our current consultation process with tribes as appropriate. So just wanted to lift that up. In our Office of Tribal Affairs Director is Heather Hostler. Also, in terms of equity, within our Office of Equity, we do also have a racial equity unit and team and leaders. We've been part of the Government Alliance for Racial Equity. It's our 3rd year now. There are 12 other state departments in our cohort that we have been going through and have been building our competencies specific to racial equity in additional ways we can embed practices within our work and policies. Certainly, we want to continue conversations. We've, as being part of both the master planning conversations as well as the Early Childhood Policy Council, we have been in receipt of a number of stakeholder communications that have been inquiring about how we can further equity principles into our work. And so absolutely committed to continue those conversations in that space as well. So just wanted to provide some comment on both of those items.
Thank you, Kim. We did also get a question in the question box asking if the goal of the programs was going to be education or custodial care. And I think it's really important to really offer that as an and, to really emphasize that from all of our perspectives, the child care and development system serves very important functions in child development and learning support, educational readiness. It also serves very important functions in supporting children and families and allowing parents to participate in school and work and to provide for their families. And we consider those to be priorities that go hand in hand with each other.
There's questions coming in, comments coming in related to both the master plan and the Assembly's Blue Ribbon Commission report. So again, master plan that has its full team and set of consultants, and we've had some conversation in the Early Childhood Policy Council that will be revisited again. We'll be having a meeting next month for additional conversations and updates related to that plan. We won't do that here in this forum, but that is the place to understand what's happening in that space. And then in terms of the Assembly Blue Ribbon Commission's recommendations, yes, we are absolutely familiar, as we should be, and as are the team working on that master plan and doing that crosswalk to understand where there is a connection and where it's furthering that goal. Just want to really appreciate the representatives that sat on that committee and also those who provided stakeholder input through that process, and recognize again the work that's been done. On the Blue Ribbon Commission report and recommendations, the master plan report is absolutely intended to build on the various plans and recommendations that have come forward as we're looking to really outline our goals and priorities for the early learning system. So stay tuned on that front. But again, just want to reiterate something I said earlier, which is in many cases, whether it be AB 104, for those of you who remember that, which was focused on creating recommendations that would yield efficiencies in both the voucher portion of the program, that's AP and CalWORK stages, as well as the Title V programs. I was in a slightly different position at that time, but with the Department of Social Services and sat on that committee. And so certainly we're very familiar with those recommendations as well. Also sat on the previous version of the Early Childhood Policy Council, the State Advisory Council on Early Learning. So again, the Department of Social Services does have connections and ties to many of these efforts and has for a while, not only because we also, of course, have administered programs, including the CalWORK Stage 1 Child Care Program, as well as the Emergency Child Care Bridge, but also, again, to support our connection to the early learning system with the other programs that I mentioned earlier. So yes, yes to all. We want to build on, again, the strengths of the system, the planning that has taken place, the voices that have taken the time, as you have all today, to make sure we are thinking about any changes and how they impact you in your communities. So again, that is our commitment to you. We very, very much appreciate all of you taking the time to join us on our second stakeholder call today. I think if we want to put up our next call, I think you have on the screen both the email address, the web page where you can find that information, also how to put surveys. Our next call, thank you, is January 28th. And we look forward to hearing from you again and also providing additional updates from this past quarter. Again, thank you to all who have participated with us. Please utilize these additional community engagement opportunities. If you have others, let me just make that invitation too. We have been at various conferences, associations, etc., also providing some space for some targeted and focused conversation. We welcome those invitations and are glad to join you as well. So thank you so much for joining us today and for all that you do for children and families across California. Thank you.